about herself. She told you about hats. I will tell you a little about myself. I will talk about South Florida, my rodina, my homeland. Okay? So the first thing, I think you know the name Florida, but do you know where it is? Is it in the north or is it in the south in America? It's in the south. And is it east or is it west?
East.
It's east. Okay, so it's in the southeast of America. The southeast. This is America, and there, the red state, there is Florida. Both, Florida. Okay? So today, we will talk about a specific part of Florida, South Florida. Why? Because South Florida is...
homeland.
Yes, it's my homeland, my rodina. But why is this part different from the rest of Florida? Right? Why not all of Florida? Because we have 2 or 3 very different parts of Florida. North Florida, I went to university here, in a town, Gainesville, right around there. North Florida is very rural. Agriculture, farms, cows, land, no people. But here, lots and lots and lots of people. We'll talk about the population, but from around here, Miami to West Palm, between these 2 cities, maybe 100, 150 kilometers, we have about 5 or 6 million people. Very many people in this place. A lot of
resorts?
And a lot of resorts, right? No, not as many cows, not as many farms. We have some, but it's very different. So it's a very special and different area, a unique part of America. So first, we need to talk about the geography, the climate, right? If you go to this place, what does it look like? What do you see? What do you feel? So Florida is a peninsula. A peninsula is a piece of land that has water on 3 sides. Okay, it's like an island, but it's connected to a different part. So it's between the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico. If there's water, guess what? It's warm and it's humid. Влажно. Lots and lots of water in the air. So it's very, very humid. If you walk outside, you feel it. I always joke, okay, I'm going to walk. I need my snorkel and scuba gear because it's so humid there. And of course, it's very warm because we are in the south. The equator, the middle of the earth, is here. Florida, not very far away. So lots of sun, very, very hot. Not like Russia. And the land is flat. Very, very flat. In my city, my house is at one of the tallest parts of the city. We are about 5 meters above the sea. Big hill, 5 meters. Oh, man. So, when I go to a place that's very tall, I walk up a building. Right now we're on the 2nd story. When I go to the 3rd story, the 3rd floor, I say, oxygen, right? This is so high. Florida, we're really flat. We don't have this. Okay? So it's a very flat place. And we have swamps. Very dirty water and grass in these areas. Lots of water and grass in these areas.
And a lot of alligators.
A lot of alligators. So we will talk about this. Okay, because think about it. Long ago, before 6 million people came to Florida, this was swamp. Water, grass, dirt, and now people are there. Very different. So we have to live with the swamp and the people. Interesting. So, a few facts about Florida. We don't need to talk too much about specifics. It's a medium-sized state. It's about 500 miles long. The average distance, I think the average distance is about 360 miles from one side to the other. But there is a part of Florida where it's much shorter, from one side to the other, from the Gulf of Mexico to the Atlantic Ocean. There is a part where it is only 140 miles. 140 miles is about, we'll say, let's see here, 160, sorry, 1 second. It's about a little over 220 kilometers, maybe. About 220 kilometers from one side to the other. So one day, my friends in university, we like to ride bikes and go outside. My friend, she's crazy, and she says, let's ride our bikes from one side to the other. 200 kilometers, one day, no problem. And we all say, you're crazy. Let's do it. So we did it, and we rode all the way across the state. In most states, you can't do this, right? Texas, for example, is huge. You cannot ride from one side to the other. Or even California, you can't ride from one side to the other. So this was a very unique experience. Sometimes you can do this. Maybe if you go to Florida, you can do this. Let's see here. So the highest, the tallest point in Florida, like I said, 345 feet. About 110 meters above sea level. This is our mountain in Florida. And we have lots of coastline, lots of beaches, lots of water. We also have lots of water in the land. We have water, streams, and lakes. Okay, so there's water on the outside and on the inside. Water everywhere. We have a very big lake called Lake Okeechobee. I will talk more about that today. But right now, it is the second largest freshwater lake in the United States. Very big freshwater lake. Palm Beach County. County is like rayon in Russia. The biggest county in Florida is Palm Beach County. This is my county, the county where I live. It is also very famous for different reasons. So, in the 2000 election, some of you might remember, some of you are too young. In the 2000 election, who ran? Who wanted to be president? What two people? Al Gore and George Bush, right? So, George W. Bush and Al Gore. So, maybe you remember, maybe not. I will tell you the story. These two men, they wanted to be president. And on election night, everyone's counting ballots, and it's very, very close. George Bush wins one, Al Gore wins one, Bush, Gore, Bush, Gore. So everyone wants to know, who wins? Who won? Okay, election night. We look at Florida. Okay, Florida, we need you. You are the last state. We need to know what you think. Who did you pick? Who did you decide? And we say, we're not sure. We think it's Bush. We're not really sure. We don't know. Right now we'll say Bush. What do you mean you don't know? Okay, so Al Gore, George Bush, this evidence, this thing goes to court. The Supreme Court goes and they look at all of this and what's happening. Why? Because in Florida and in Palm Beach County, during this election, the way people voted, they had a paper. This is before computers. They had a paper. And you have the name of a president or the name of a person, and then over here, there was a part where you need to punch the paper. You need to punch the paper. And when it goes through, that means I choose this person. So Palm Beach County, we have old people, we have people who can't see, we have lots of things like that. And the lines are very, very close. So the people look and they go, Bush, Gore, Bush, Gore, yeah, that one. Or they don't get all the way through. They only push a little bit. So everyone's looking through these ballots, the people who count, and they say, who did this person vote for? Is it Bush or Gore? Bush or Gore? We don't know. We put it here and there. So it was chaos. Very crazy system. But in the end, they said, okay, we have more Bush than Gore, so Bush wins. And that's how George Bush became president, thanks to Palm Beach County. Crazy things. Yeah. So that's my area. And we have lots of other great things in Florida. So back to geography and climate. One of the not so good things in Florida is that we are near the ocean where there's warm water, which is good for people, but also good for storms, good for hurricanes. So, in 2005, we had a really bad hurricane season. This was our last really bad hurricane season. The good news is from 2005 till now, not so bad. No real big hurricanes, nothing bad. But this year was very different, very interesting. So, hurricanes, they're big storms, you know this. In Russia, sometimes you use the word hurricane, but I don't think you really know what it means because you don't have these. You don't have this giant storm with an eye coming at you.
Okay? What was its name?
This one, I don't know, but we have lots of names later. So I will talk about some of those. So in 2005, we had a lot of storms, like I said. We had the most tropical storms in 1 year. A tropical storm is a little below a hurricane. The winds are between 35 and 75 miles an hour. So that's about between 45 or 50 kilometers per hour and about 110 kilometers per hour. So strong, but not crazy. We had 28 of these. 28 from about, I think the storm season starts in May until October. A few months. We had 28 of these. 15 hurricanes. A hurricane is any storm with more than 110 kilometers per hour winds. 15 of those really big storms. And we had four Category 5 hurricanes. Category 5 is the strongest. It is over 150 mile an hour winds. 150 miles per hour is more than 230 kilometers per hour. Very, very, very strong storm. Very dangerous. We had 4 of those in 1 year. Emily, Katrina, Rita, and William. And when a storm is really bad, like these, and it causes a lot of damage, homes are destroyed, people die, things like that, the name of the storm is retired. We never use that name again. 5 of those hurricanes that happened. We had 4 major hurricanes hit the U.S. It was the worst season ever. $150 billion of damage in Florida, Carolinas, Louisiana, Texas, all of these states. That's a lot of money, a lot of damage. And the worst hurricane ever, the most damage was from Katrina, which actually didn't do much in Florida, which was good. But Louisiana, you probably know, New Orleans, was flooded. It was basically destroyed. So that was a really bad hurricane. The thing is, New Orleans is below the sea level, so the water came in. Florida is at sea level, so it's a little different. But the point is, we had a lot of storms. Right? These are the paths of the storms, so you can see they were all over.
And what do you do during storm or actually Florida?
If you're a true Floridian, a true person from Florida, you say, okay, my window, I put a piece of wood on it, I sit down, I watch TV, I listen to the radio, I eat some food. But yes, we do have, when a storm is coming and people know, you have options. Normally the government, they tell you, this is a strong storm, please get out, we will open the roads, everyone can leave. We want everyone to leave, like Katrina. But sometimes people say, no, I'm a brave person, я настоящий американец, hurricane, ничего, right? And they sit there. So it depends. Some people are really crazy and they stay there. It's not safe. Some people leave. My family, we never left because we were very lucky. Our area...
Because you live on the hill.
Yes, we live on the hill. A very tall hill. And we're also very lucky. None of the very, very big storms came directly at us. We got maybe the side or another part that's not as strong. So we were lucky. Actually, there was a very bad hurricane in 1992 called Andrew, which basically destroyed Miami because it had so many tornadoes with it. It had, yeah, Andrew. So it had many tornadoes with it. A lot of tornadoes that really just destroyed every home in Miami. It was supposed to hit Boca Raton, my city. My parents, and of course no one knew. No one knew that these tornadoes would happen. So my parents, my sister who's older, they all three laid down, went to sleep. In the morning, they woke up, and Andrew did not hit Boca Raton. They said, okay, we're alive. And then they find out that Miami was basically destroyed. And that could have been my home, my family. So you always take a chance. You never know. But my family's been very lucky. But there's good nature in South Florida too. Good things. So we have the beaches, the Atlantic Ocean, Lake Okeechobee, like I said, and a place called the Everglades. So, yes, you know about Florida. We're on the ocean, and we have beaches. This is the beach where I live. Okay, we have 2 or 3 beaches, 2 or 3 places you can go to. This one is called Palmetto Beach. Very nice. Lots of young, beautiful people like to go to this beach, and they walk around, they throw a football, they tan. It's a very popular beach, and it's beautiful, of course. Tourists like to come here. Everyone likes to come here.
Are there many sharks in the ocean?
We'll talk about that. Normally here, no, but sometimes. Okay, so we have the beaches, cool. But we also have a big, big lake right in the middle of the state. So here's the bottom part of Florida. This giant piece of water is Lake Okeechobee. So Lake Okeechobee, like I said, the second largest freshwater lake in the United States, very big.
Is it an Indian name?
Yes, it is a Native American name. So we do have Native American names for some places. Okeechobee, you say, that's what English word is that? Right? It's not English, it comes from Native American languages. I'm sorry, I don't know the meaning of Okeechobee, but I'm sure it means something really good. So here you can see we have water and grass, lots of fish, wildlife, animals live here. It's really good. It's good for people too because, of course, we want water, we like to drink. Yeah? Like Baikal. It's important. People like to drink the water from Baikal. We have the water from Okeechobee.
Okeechobee means big water.
Big water. Surprise. Sometimes the Native Americans are smart
Something
people.
good.
Yeah, big water. Okay.
Legit.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah.
So, Lake Big Water. That's this place. So it's really good. We drink water from here. It helps the people who live in South Florida. But sometimes it can be a little dangerous. You have a lot of water, and you have people who live here, right? So if the water goes up, guess what? It comes down, and it can flood, and it can hurt people or damage homes. So on the edge, the bottom part here, the government built these things called dikes, really big hills that keep the water in. But sometimes when there's a lot of rain, it gets very tall, and the dikes, they're made out of grass and dirt. They're weak. Sometimes they need to change these things, and there's always this debate. What do we do? Do we make bigger dikes? Do we let the water go? All of these things. So it's an important thing, and it's important for our next point, the Everglades. So the lake is in the middle of the state, right? And then we saw there's grass and other things to the south. So that water from Lake Okeechobee goes down south, under the water, or under the land and over the land, lots of water, all this fresh water. And it creates this area where you have water, you have grass, you have dirt, and you have trees. It creates a swamp, Molotov. So it's a really good place for animals. And it's right in the middle of the state, and for a long time, very, very important for the Native Americans, important for people in Florida. Now, if you go to the Everglades, you can tour the Everglades. You can go on this boat. It is called an airboat. Why? Because we have a big fan that moves air, so the boat goes forward. why do we use an airboat in the Everglades? Because the water is very shallow, right? Less than 1 meter sometimes. So if you have a big engine and it goes down into the ground, you can't move forward. We have to use this because it goes on top of the water. It goes forward. It's also very, very loud. You have to wear earphones because this fan is huge. So if you go to the Everglades, you can ride on one of these. And if you go to the Everglades and you're very strong and brave, maybe you can wrestle an alligator. So in the Everglades, we do have alligators. We have fish. We have lots of wildlife. I will talk about this in a little bit. But one of the things that you can do when you tour the Everglades, you can watch people who have not pet alligators, but they grow them on a farm and they show them to tourists. So you will see them in the wild and you will see them on land. So now we need to talk about these animals in the Everglades and in the ocean. So we have lots of reptiles in Florida: alligators, crocodiles, snakes, turtles. We'll talk about the difference between an alligator and a crocodile. We have fish in fresh and salt water. So if you like fish, it's a great place. Lots of people like to go fishing. We have sharks, over 50 different types of sharks. And mating season takes place in Florida. So when these people want to go on, VK, the sharks, and find a really nice looking shark, a really nice female shark, they go to Florida in January and April. We also have some mammals that live on land: panthers, bears, dolphins live in the water, and birds. And of course, very beautiful places like this. This is a nature reserve, a special place, a special park for nature and wildlife in the north part of Palm Beach County where I live. Okay, so crocodile, alligator, what's the difference? Does anyone know?
Alligator is
What do you
smaller
mean,
than
Jeske?
crocodile.
An alligator can be smaller.
Not so
And
big.
faster.
Alligator is not so big as crocodile.
Okay, so sometimes the size difference, yeah. But alligators can be huge, and crocodiles can be huge. So it's not always easy, especially if it's underwater. You only see part of the alligator, part of the crocodile. So how do we decide, alligator or crocodile? We look at the nose, the snout. So if you see here, we have a crocodile. It's a pointed nose, like a triangle, right? He wants to attack you with his nose. And an alligator, it's more round. It's more of a rounded nose. So if you are lost in the Everglades and you need to ask an animal for directions, you need to say, "Oh, Mr. Alligator, Mr. Crocodile, how do I get back to land?" You can know that it's an alligator if his nose is round, or a crocodile if it's pointed. So that's one important thing. And you say, "Oh, his nose is pointed. Mr. Crocodile, please help me. Please don't eat me, Mr. Crocodile." And he says, "Okay, Mr. Russian, no problem. You can go back to land."
Do they often attack people?
Sometimes. The big problem is when people go into water or places and they should not be there. Or, and in general, like I said, the problem is that Florida is a swamp, so it's their home, not our home. So we build places to live, and we go into the wild, and we go into their home, and sometimes it creates a problem. So in South Florida, if you're in the city, right, no problem. You're in the city, there's no water, they can't do anything. They don't live there. But if you're in a place that's a little further from the city, closer to the Everglades, or you live near a big lake, they can live there. Alligators can live there. For example, there was a really bad accident last year, a few months ago I think, last year at Disney World, which is in Orlando in Central Florida. They have a place, one of their parks, they have a lake, and it says, a sign, "Do not swim." No lifeguard, this is water, do not swim. But a family from a different state said, "Oh, we'll just splash around, no problem." And their little son, who was 2 or 3 years old, went into the lake, and there's no lifeguards, no one swims there. And so an alligator comes up and he grabbed the son and took the son, and the son died. Because these people didn't know the alligator lived there. They really should not have been swimming there, and there was a fight between them and Disney World, and then Disney World closed it off, basically. Because alligators can grow in any fresh water, so it happens sometimes. Or, for example, when I went to university in Gainesville, North Florida, where there's more land, I was with my sister. We went in the car, we turned down the street, and there's some people on the sidewalk, and we say, why are they standing there? What are they doing? Well, they're standing by the sewer. This is the place where water under the earth goes. And there are people standing there, and a guy with a big pole, and we kind of look, and there was an alligator about 2 meters, 2¼ meters, sitting on the sidewalk by the sewer. This guy was trying to catch him so that he could put him in the van and drive him to somewhere else. So sometimes you see that. Sometimes it happens. And the other interesting thing about crocodiles and alligators. Alligators only live in fresh water. Crocodiles only live in salt water. So, okay, they should live in lakes, and these should live in oceans. But they both live in the Everglades.
And what about the Nile crocodile?
Nile crocodile, that's salt water.
Salt.
Salt water.
The Nile is everywhere.
Yeah, but I think it comes from the...
It's a mixture of water.
Yeah. Hmm? Yeah, Mediterranean or the Red Sea. So it's also very dirty water, but yeah, that's why the crocodile lives there. So it is a river, but not necessarily fresh water. So both of these live in the Everglades. How does that happen? Well, the fresh water from Lake Okeechobee comes down, so it's good for the alligators. But underneath Florida, we have water from the ocean. Right? We're on top of the ocean, so we have some salt water from the ocean. And it comes through the earth in springs. And these little bits of salt water from the ocean and the dirt and the mud that are from the swamp help create water that is good for both of these. So it's a very unique place, the only place in America where you can find alligators and crocodiles together. But we have a problem in the Everglades. So, a few years ago, when I was young, people in Florida said alligators, crocodiles, cool. I want a different animal, a different reptile. So they bought snakes from Asia, Burmese pythons, and they had them as pets. They say, okay, here's my little cage, my nice little snake, my nice little python, no problem. But then the snake gets bigger and bigger, it needs a lot of food. You say, okay, here's a 3-kilogram chicken, eat your chicken for today, and then you give them one tomorrow, and it's a lot of food, yeah? So these people say the snake is huge, he eats a lot of food, I don't want this pet anymore, I can't give him to the zoo, I can't sell him, what do I do? Kill him? No, I'm a nice person, I can't kill my pet, so be free! You just let the snake go! Be free, live, not my problem. So these snakes, they crawl around and they find the Everglades. And it is a perfect place for them. They're from Asia. It's warm, it's wet, there are fish, there are animals. So in Florida, they say, oh, this is really good. Very, very similar. It's like my home. But there's no animals that kill me. No predators, no animals that kill these snakes. So it's really good. We can eat, we can make babies, we can make more snakes, and we can be kings of the Everglades.
Because like they're not original, yeah, for this region.
Yes, we call this invasive species. They're not from this region. So no one kills these, so they have a really easy life here. But that's not good for the alligators, the crocodiles, the fish, the birds that live here. It's their home. Right? The python comes to them, the alligator says, who are you? And he speaks in Asian, Chinese, or Vietnamese. And they don't understand each other, and it's not good. Right? They go to war. What happens? So it's not good for the Everglades. And these snakes get huge, and they can eat fish. They eat the same things that alligators do. So it's competition. Not good for the alligators, really good for the
Not long
pythons.
ago, I saw a program on channel Animal Planet,
Yeah.
and they spoke about pythons in Florida, mainly
Yes.
Florida.
Mhm.
Huge pythons.
Yeah,
But they call them man-eaters.
man
Is it
eaters.
possible?
I mean, if you walk around in the Everglades and you're not careful, maybe.
Yeah, man-eater, they call them.
Well,
So-
I don't swallow people whole, so like unless you're laying down and like
Well,
I
suffocate
mean,
you first.
passed out, do they?
Yeah,
They squish you
they
first,
suffocate
and they
you,
sort
and
of
then
like.
after that, they put you underneath that.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, I saw the picture.
Yeah, but how would you not notice this
no,
jump?
you notice it, but they're really
Yeah,
strong.
Yeah.
So, like, if they wrap around your legs and you can't move,
You're dead.
It's true.
you're,
So yes, in theory, yes, they can be men.
yeah. But luckily, this is they don't normally eat people. They're in the Everglades. People don't normally walk in the Everglades. But it is a problem for the alligators, the crocodiles, because they can kill alligators and crocodiles sometimes, and they try to eat them. So that's not good either. So a few years ago, our governor said, okay, this is a problem. People tell me this is a problem. We will send some hunters into the Everglades to kill or capture these pythons. So now we have this a few times a year. These hunters go in, they try to find the snakes, and it helps, but they still live. And it's a growing problem. We actually now have these in the Florida Keys, which is a very different environment, but also good for them. And it's a very, very sensitive and delicate environment. So it's a big problem. Hopefully we can find a solution. We have other animals in the Florida area as well. So we have manatees in South Florida. These live in the ocean. We have a place in Palm Beach County, in Jupiter, the north part, where they make energy. And this place is right on water because you need the water to cool engines. So they built this big energy factory on the water, on the ocean. And of course, the warm water that was going on top of the machines, they put into the ocean. So during the winter, this is really, really warm water. And the animals, the manatees, they like warm water. They don't want to swim in the cold ocean. So they come here and they sit here and they enjoy the warm water. So if you go to Jupiter in South Florida, you can see all of these manatees in the winter. They all gather around. They say, oh, it's warm here. Florida is so cold. This is good.
What's the Russian for this thing?
Lamantine.
Lamantine.
So, yes, manatees. We also have animals on the land. This is the Florida Panther. As some of you know, we have the Florida Panther hockey team. This comes from the Florida Panther, which lives in Florida. There are not many, but we have them. We also have some bears, just like you have bears in Russia. This is the Florida black bear. Sometimes if you leave your garbage on the street, this bear will come and say, oh, why didn't you eat this pizza? Yum. We also have dolphins in the water, and we have boars, which are like giant pigs. Sometimes they get really big, people hunt them, and then they have lots of bacon. And we have sharks, as we said. So sharks like to come to Florida to find nice boyfriends and girlfriends. Yeah? It's warm here in the winter. It's cold in the north. So they come down, it's warm. They go out in their really nice bikinis. They say hello to each other, they party, and then they find a nice shark to be friends with. So we have thousands and thousands of these sharks. This is from a helicopter above water. You can see thousands of sharks. They come to Florida, and sometimes they get close to the beach. This one is in Palm Beach County, again, where I live. Oh, we can see a nice little shark swimming by. It happens. Not often, but sometimes. So if a lifeguard sees a shark, they put up a flag and they say no one goes in the water. So it's good.
But you have any special protections from shark on the beaches?
Not really. What can you do?
Just be careful.
Yeah,
Just be careful.
Yeah, sometimes in beaches, for example, in the Keys, in the Florida Keys, where it's very open, they put nets. But here, we have thousands of miles of coast. You can't put a net all the way down. It's also not good for the environment if you put a net for thousands of miles. So the best thing we do is we watch, and then we put flags up and we tell people you can't swim. Question?
I have a question. But they're mostly breed in open water, right?
Yeah, they're mostly far off from the coast, so it's normally not a problem. Sometimes we do have a thing called a reef, which is like where you have rocks underwater and fish live there. Sometimes they'll come into this area if it's near the coast. But normally they tend to stay further out in the ocean. So sometimes they come in, and we do have shark attacks if you surf, but when I swim, it's normally not a problem. So you take a chance.
Is it a white shark or?
No, great white sharks normally...
Well, sharks usually live in cold waters.
Yeah, they normally are in cold water. Here we have lemon sharks, blackfin, different species. So reef sharks, some of these. So.
Have you ever met shark?
Oh, all of my best friends are sharks. No, I have never met a shark in the water, thank goodness. But sometimes we have, in the area where I'm at, we have a big fish that's about this big. I think it's I forget the name right now. Maybe not a turk, something with a T. Anyway, it gets about 2 or 3 feet, and it has a kind of tall fin. So I've seen these swim, and I go, oh, it's a shark. No, it's just a fish. So, thankfully, no. If there's a shark, I will run out of the water, trust me. I watched Jaws. I'm not going to mess with a shark. So despite the hurricanes, the sharks, and all of these things, we have a lot of tourists. In 2015, Florida had 105 million tourists. We were the first state in America to have more than 100 million tourists in 1 year. It's a lot of people. We also have 2 special types of tourists. One are college students. In America, we have a tradition called spring break. So every year in March, sometimes April, colleges, universities, they have 1 week, no classes. They say, okay, students, you need time for your brain to rest. Go somewhere, rest, relax. 1 week. So these people, they come from New York, Minnesota, Wisconsin, where there's snow, and they go to Florida because it's warm in March in Florida. And they party, and they go to the beach, and they get tan, and they walk around, and they throw footballs, like good college students in Florida. So that's one special type of tourists. And we also have snowbirds. So we have snow and bird. Snow, we understand, and bird. So what is a snowbird? It's a person, okay? Snowbirds are old people who live in New York or maybe DC, Wisconsin, somewhere in the north where it snows. And they're old babushkas and diedushkas, and they say, I don't like this snow, it's hard, I can't walk, so I want to go somewhere warm. Okay? So in maybe October, sometimes November, they say, okay, now there's snow in New York. I get my bags, and I go to Florida. Actually, we go to Florida. And they go to Florida from October or November until it is warm in the north. Sometimes March or April. Very long time. 6, 7, sometimes 8 months they live in Florida. And then they go back to the north. So these are snowbirds, because when it snows, like birds, they pick up their things and they fly to Florida. They live in their little dacha on the beach in Florida, and we have to live with these old people for 6 or 7 months. The people who say, why isn't this food like New York? Why aren't the streets like New York? Why aren't the apartments like New York? So because it's Florida. If you want New York, go to Florida. Go to New York. So sometimes they're very crazy and complaining old people. But they bring lots of good things with them, like bagels, and and health insurance and medical care and things like that. Okay, so these tourists, they come to Florida and they like to see lots of things. We have Miami Seaquarium, a giant area with lots of big water mammals like the whale and fish and other things. Jungle Island is in Miami. it's like a jungle, it's an island, there are animals, birds, you can see them, you can take pictures. So these things are very popular. And we have some specific interesting tourist places in Palm Beach County near where I live. So the first one is Gumbo Limbo Nature Center. Gumbo Limbo is a type of tree that grows in Florida. It is in mangroves, an area where there's a beach and water. And there's these trees that grow and little fish. It is a very special type of ecosystem, a very special system where certain animals live, specific animals live. So, in this center, they study turtles, sea turtles. Because we have sea turtles in Florida, and we need to know about them. We want to save them, we want to help them. So we have a university, they work here, scientists, they study, they protect, they help these turtles and animals. And you can also go see and learn about animals in Florida. So I volunteered here for a while, my sister volunteered here for a while. It's a very nice place. I also volunteered at a place called Murakami Museum and Gardens. So a long time ago, in maybe the early 20th century, we had some Japanese people who moved to Florida. They bought a big farm because there were not people. They grew pineapples and other things. And when they left, they gave their land to people to use, and they decided to make a Japanese museum in honor of the people who lived here. So now we have the only living Japanese culture and history museum in America. So if you want to learn about Japan and you're in America, you can go here. Very interesting. So 3 or 4 times a year they have big festivals, and they have celebrations of Japanese culture and traditions, and they're very interesting. This one is the Japanese New Year celebration, one of our favorites. It was very interesting, a lot of fun, something very unique in South Florida. We also have a place called Sugar Sand Park, which has this very big wooden structure for children to play on. When I was little, I loved to play here because it was this huge place with giant wooden things that you can run around and crawl in. So it's very cool, very unique. You can do it all year round, no snow. And we have a place called Lion Country Safari, because alligators and crocodiles, they're cool, but we want to see animals from Africa. So we have animals from Africa here, where you can go and drive around in this little park, and you can say, "Hello, Mr. Lion," "Hello, Mr. Giraffe," in your car, if you want. Very interesting. So, sometimes people, these tourists, these snowbirds, they come to Florida and they say, Florida is nice, it's crazy, but I like it. I don't want to go back. I want to live here. So, it is a migration magnet. People from all over the world move and live in South Florida. My parents are from the north. My mom was born in Pennsylvania, my dad was born in Michigan. And they moved to Florida. They migrated. So, since the time that Europeans first came to Florida, we have always had people coming in and moving to Florida. From the 1970s until now, 80% of the population growth is from people who moved to Florida. So we have some babies, but we also have lots and lots of people who come from different places. And since 2010, a little more than 50% of these people are from the US, and a little less than 50% are from outside of the United States. So here we have some numbers about where these people come from. We have a good number from Asia, people from the Caribbean, Central America, and South America, of course, very popular place to move from, and a few from Europe. Probably not too many from Russia, but we have some. So this makes the population in Florida very, very diverse. For example, when I was in school, I had a friend his parents were Indian, his family moved here from India, he was born here, but he was of Indian heritage. Another friend who was Hispanic, his family I think was from Mexico, they had roots in Mexico. And of course we had different Europeans, African Americans. Those were my friends when I was really little. And in high school, I have 3 or 4 very close friends from high school that I still talk to. Let's see, one is European, a person like me. Another, his family is from Peru. Another, his family is from China. And a third, his family is from Bengal. So I live in a place where it's very normal for me to see people from all over the world. It's very interesting. Of course we have lots of Americans, lots of white people, but we have people from all over, Hispanics, Asians, Europeans, we have everyone in this area. So it's very diverse. You see people from all over. It's the whole world in South Florida. So it's very interesting place. And you can see, where do these people move to from abroad? People who move from South America, Central America, Europe, Asia. They move to South Florida because Luke lives there, so they want to go to South Florida. And we also have had some very interesting and famous people who have moved to Florida. So we have 2 presidents with connections to Florida. The first one was from the 1960s. Does anyone have a guess which president this was? Kennedy, yes. So the Kennedys bought a house in South Florida in maybe the 1920s, 1910s. There was John Kennedy's grandma, or his mom or grandma, I think. She bought a house in West Palm Beach, in Palm Beach County, the area I live. And as a boy, John Kennedy and his family went here and they visited often, especially during Christmas, because like good snowbirds, they leave the north and they come to Florida when it's cold. So he started visiting in 1926, and when he was president, he came down as well. He came from DC or other places and he visited the White House or his house in West Palm Beach.
Kennedy was a Republican.
Democrat. And this is his house. Now it is sold and it's owned by different people, some really nice American oligarchs, I'm sure. And it's very close to the beach. So if you go to my area, you can still see the house where the Kennedys used to live. When I ride my bike at home, I ride past this place sometimes. So you can see it today. And we have another president who likes to visit South Florida.
Oh, God.
Who was the other president who came to South Florida? What do we think?
Last week, one who spent more money than any other president on golf.
President Donald Trump. Okay, so this is President Donald Trump's little dacha Mar-a-Lago. So, now it is not just his place. For a long time, he has had a club there, where people who pay money can go and enjoy. So, the story of Mar-a-Lago is an interesting one. So, he bought this place and it was a little different. He built new houses and new things. But this was a building, this was a property way before Donald Trump. In the 1970s, there was a nice lady with lots of money who built a house here, maybe this area. She built a house. She wanted the presidents to come here. So in the 1970s, she died and she said, I give this to the White House. Whoever is president can use it. And so for a little time, Nixon, Reagan, they had this house. It was there and the White House owned it. But the presidents didn't go and visit here. They said, I don't really want to, I have other places, we don't need it. And it was very, very expensive to pay for this place because you need to clean it, you need to paint, you need to do all of these things, and you have to pay taxes. Even though the United States government owns it, they have to pay taxes. So they decided, this is too expensive, we can't pay $3 million every year for this house that we don't need. So they give it back to the people who have the old lady's money and her other things, because she left lots of money. So they give it back to her daughters and sons and the other people. They have this place. And the daughters and sons say, well, we don't really want this place. We want to sell it. So they try to sell it. And what do you think? A building that's on the ocean, is it very cheap or is it expensive? Expensive, yeah? So they wanted a few $1 million for it, right? $20-30 million for it in the 1980s. Okay, money was worth more then. So they wanted $20-30 million maybe. They try to sell it, but they don't take care of it because they don't want to pay $1 million to paint and clean and all of these things. So slowly, it gets dirty, things change, it needs paint, it's not good. So it starts to become less expensive and less expensive. But they're trying to sell it. No one wants to buy it. So this nice young man, Donald J. Trump, comes to them and he says, I will give you $15 million. They say, psh, we want 25 at least, maybe 30. Go home, Donald. So Donald says, okay. And he buys a little piece of land right here on the ocean. And he says, it's between Mar-a-Lago and the beach, this little piece of land. He buys it for $3 million. And he says, okay, I'm going to build a really big apartment complex, 20 stories tall and really wide. And if he does this, guess what? This building, giant wall, and the beach. No one will buy this because if you live here, you want to see the beach. So if he builds these apartments, then this thing is worth $0. So the people are upset. They're really mad. They say, okay, what? This can't happen. And so they go to court, they try and sue. Donald comes back and he says, all right, I'll give you the $15 million and I'll give you $2 or $3 million for the paintings and the other things that are inside the house. These people say, okay, fine, we need to get rid of this house, $15 million, it's yours, Donald. So that's how our very young businessman Donald Trump got Mar-a-Lago. And of course, after a while, he figured out that it does cost a lot of money to pay for this place. So, businessman that he is, he thought of a plan to pay for this place, to pay to keep the janitors and the other things. He opened a club, and people pay money, and they can join his club, they can stay here, they can go to the beach. So that's how he pays for this place. So he does not spend more money on it. And he really likes to go there. So now he has this, it's his place, it's where he likes to visit. So, he really likes to go here, he calls it the Winter White House, and he has been here a lot of times, I don't know how many. He became president in January, it's now April.
13 times.
Yeah, probably 13 times. So we've had maybe 20 weekends between, probably less, probably about 18 weekends between when he became president and now. 13 of 18 weekends, he was at Mar-a-Lago. So he was in South Florida.
He cares.
Yeah.
Yeah, he cares a lot.
Cares a lot about Florida. And sometimes you have crazy news like this and other things about people in South Florida. For example, we have these old people who like to play golf. So we had a guy who was really old, and you know when you play golf, you get in a little car and you drive around the golf course because the golf course is very long. So he was driving his golf cart on the street and he got arrested. So he was not supposed to be driving and doing crazy things on the street, on the road, and he got arrested. Or some people, like this man who stole lottery tickets. Guess what? Lottery tickets are in the computer. They have a number on them, and the computer knows the numbers. So he steals the tickets, and he tries to give them back for money. Oh, guess what? The computer says you stole this. You're going to jail. People not always too smart in South Florida. Okay, some more things like this. A woman stopped a robber by laughing and saying no. That's about. Or a man who probably was not quite there. he got naked in front of a 7-Eleven, which is a very small store, took off his clothes, and he said, "I'm a monkey." And then they arrest him and send him to jail. So some crazy things happen in South Florida. But that's life in South Florida. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you very much. And
I have a
do you have
question.
any questions?
Is it expensive to live in Florida in comparison with other states?
Yes, it
Because in
can.
Russia, you know that it's much more expensive to live in Sochi, in a resort place.
Yes. Yes, so it is more expensive. You can be in, say, the middle area and live, but it does require more money. Mostly, you need to pay more for a home or an apartment. The cost of that is definitely higher. The food is probably normal, other
That's what
things,
it
but
is.
normally to buy a house or an apartment is more expensive.
Who are people who determine a new name for a new hurricane, and how looks this process of calling a new hurricane?
Yeah, so before the season starts in whatever March, they release a list of all the names for the new year. So it's they have the list before the hurricane starts so that it's ready. If a hurricane comes, boom, they go. And if actually in 2005, I think they have A through Z, the alphabet, one name for every letter: Albert, Bob, Cindy, whatever, all the way down. So 26 names. In 2005, we finished A through Z, and then I think we went to the Greek alphabet. So alpha, beta, gamma, delta, all of those. So they have the big list and system that they release in probably March or January every year. And I think it's meteorologists, scientists who study weather, they make the names.
No, people just vote for new name.
I think sometimes people do, but I think also the scientists just make names, some sort of system together, they work. I don't know for sure.
One last question. The Kennedy Space Center is close to your hometown.
It's not close to me, it's probably 4 or 5 hour drive.
Okay.
But when I was small, I did go visit.
You didn't see the launching of shuttles from your place.
Yeah. Sometimes you could see, you can. It's far off, but you can sometimes see in the sky. So it's possible, yeah, even from where I'm at. Yeah, it's very interesting. And if you're close, it's good. Right now we don't have space shuttles, so you can't. But when I was younger, you could see them.
Thank you.
Do you have the animal of the state? Like, I know that the motto of the state is in God we trust, yeah? So, do you have the animal of the state like they do in Illinois or in some other
Yeah.
places?
Yeah, I believe the animal is probably the
Crocodile?
no, I think it's the Florida panther. But we have, I think like the,
Louisiana.
yeah, I think we have like the fish of the state and the reptile. The reptile is probably the alligator. There's probably some fish that we have. I think the animal is the Florida panther, and then the reptile is probably the alligator.
Nowadays, perhaps a huge python.
Have
Yeah,
you got
maybe.
mosquitoes?
Oh, mosquitoes.
Yeah.
Yeah, mosquitoes are not a good thing either. So I know you have them in Russia, but it's been really nice this winter, no mosquitoes.
What's the difference between a Florida panther and a cougar? They look similar.
Panthers live in Florida. Of course.
Alright.
Why do you need to ask?
Sorry.
No.
No, cougars just live in my home
You
state.
can't
so
monopolize this animal.
Yeah. I guess there must probably be some like anatomical differences
Yeah,
because
I'll Google it.
no, because they probably live in like the mountains, whereas Florida
Yeah.
panthers live on like flatlands. And
Yeah.
They probably eat different animals.
Yeah, cougars live in like the north, so northeast, and then also areas of the west, if I'm not mistaken. So.
Yeah, I'm sure if you put a Florida panther there, they would live, but I don't know. I've never been to like see a cougar. So
Yeah, they're interesting creatures.
Two things. Maybe it's the snowbird versus the leopard. But the second one, how expensive is that young strachovka for hurricane stuff?
Yeah. So it depends on your insurance, I guess. I honestly don't know. I don't know that it's very much, but I also don't know that they really cover anything. So
Gotcha.
yeah, I think normally the best thing that you do is you buy flood insurance, because you buy like flood insurance or wind insurance, and I think like the flood insurance is normally what more people invest in, because they figure like you might get more return on that, like, and if you're closer to the coast, it's like mandatory and some things. But yeah, and sure, it's not cheap. So. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Для тех, кто посещает «Моя новость» не новость, второй раз, а для тех, кто пришел